I'm just going to tread water for a bit. With illness and people being prepared to do things and then suddenly they weren't, we're a little behind with our setup and everything, but hopefully that will be okay. It's wonderful to sing hymns like that. That's one of my favourite songs. And to be able to preach after singing like that about a subject that I want to speak about, hopefully all fits in. Because I don't know about you, but I've got the joy. Of you. I've got the joy down in my heart. Have you? I mean, we sing this, and we sing joy to the world, and we sing joyful, joyful, we adore thee. But have we really got that joy? My mum's in hospital. How can I have that kind of joy? There are people who were preparing to come here this morning and they can't because of sickness or the children are ill or whatever it might be. How can they still have joy when they were preparing for something and now suddenly they can't do it? Oh, you don't mind me saying it, Julius, but Julius had joy this week. But that was tempered with news that someone who's loved passed away. Now, her daughter wrote a post on Facebook saying how much her mum was looking forward to what comes next. Can you believe that? How can you have that kind of joy at that particular point at the end of your life? Because there's something more than this life, something outside of ourselves, something greater than ourselves that we need to hang on to and hold on to experience that joy that was proclaimed to some shepherds who then went and told it to others and who that message then went around the world that there is a joy that we can have because of someone who came to this world and did what we've just remembered as Tap was talking about just a short while ago. Evangelion is the word for the good news. When you see the word gospel or good news written in the Bible, this is the Greek word that it's taken from. And William Tyndale is someone who is very, very important as far as the Bible is concerned. He said this about Evangelion. It is a Greek word signifying good, merry, glad, and joyful news that makes the heart glad, causing singing, dancing, and leaping for joy. When was the last time, apart from Julius, when was the last time you experienced that kind of joy? What day was it? Wednesday. When did you last have some good news and everyone rejoiced with you and Ima? We rejoiced at good news. And this is what it is. We wait for good news. This is what Evangelion is all about. It's that good news that you wait for, that family is safe. Joseph and Gloria got some bad news. Comfort's been in an accident. But she's safe. That's the good news. There's news that you wait for about a family that are perhaps in a dangerous area. We see this a lot going on in the world now with tragedies that strike. And what do? You wait for what? Good news. And you're filled with peace, contentment, or joy that they're all right. And this is the kind of thing that William Tyndale was talking about, who believed in this kind of joy, who believed that Jesus was the one who brought that joy. And he believed it so strongly that the Bible needed to be translated from Latin into English so ordinary people could understand it and not be led astray by priests who could speak and learned people who could speak Latin and tell them this is what it says and lead them astray. So he wanted to put it in words that people could understand. And you know what happened to him? He got killed. He got put to death. Not before he'd got enough of the Bible translated for people to be able to see how they were being misled and led astray. But here is a man who really believed in this news that made him merry and glad and joyful, that made his heart glad, causing him to sing and dance and leap for joy. On your way here today, did you sing and dance and leap for joy? Well, perhaps not so much leaping on this ice, obviously. But is that the way we feel when we're about to meet with each other? Is that the way we feel when we think of Jesus? Or does life sometimes come crashing in? Where these things are concerned, there is still something troubling. People come here for good news. Let's make it personal, but they go to churches, but let's make it personal. They come here to hear good news. They come here for peace. They come here for hope. But do they see conflict instead? Are there troubling things within the church? Is there something that makes you not want to sit next to that person because, well, we're not getting on too well at the moment? Or maybe there's just exhaustion. By the time we're here, we're exhausted. You've worked all week. You've got children as well, and you're dealing with them, or you've got sick family members, or whatever might be going on. And we're supposed to have this joy, but I'm just exhausted because of things that are taking place. I'm not saying that's sinful. I'm saying that's a fact of our lives sometimes, that we're just exhausted. So within the church, people come and meet us and they find people that are exhausted because everybody else can just deal with their stuff. We've got to do church as well, haven't we? It's just that added thing. You drive along in the summer and you see people washing the car and you're on your way to church. And when am I going to get the chance to wash my car or whatever it might be? So there are extra things that we take on because of this thing that's supposed to be bringing us joy. What are we going to do about that? What do people really see and hear? In Isaiah 5 and verse 7, this is not a new problem, we find out. The vineyard of the Lord Almighty is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are the garden of his delight. Isn't that wonderful? What a beautiful picture of God's people. And he, that is God, looked for justice, but saw bloodshed, for righteousness, but heard cries of distress. This is why the Jews lost whatever God was giving them. Because there they are, these people who were blessed, and they were fighting. And there was no righteousness. They were distressed. How many people in Northampton and other towns are ex-Christians, we might say, or even strongly anti-Christian, because they went to church to hear good news of great joy, but it was drowned out by strife and trouble. If you've been around long enough, we know this to be true. It's just a very sad truth that we've got this wonderful message, we've got this joy that we've accepted and should be feeling, but all too often, like the Israelites, we lose a focus and it goes a little bit wrong. So the question is, are we being faithful to the good news? Surely if we've got the good news right, then everything else should fall into place. There's a man by the name of Francis Schaeffer who was born in the early part of the 19th century. And there was a problem that he saw within the denomination that he was in. He was following God, but he was part of a denomination. And he came to the conclusion that every institution tends to produce its opposite. So a church with the truth of the gospel in its theology can produce the opposite of the gospel in its practice. In Revelation 3 and verse 17, Jesus puts it this way. You say, I'm rich. I have everything I want. I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. One of the letters that he wrote to one of the 7 churches, that you think you're doing okay because you've got me. You see, the Jews thought they were doing okay because they'd got God. They'd got the law. They were his chosen people. But eventually it didn't translate into the way they lived. It didn't translate even into the way they treated one another. Are we in danger of that happening to us? As it happened with some individuals? Has the joy somewhere along the way been drowned out by exhaustion or strife or trouble? We have to face the fact that we're human and we're weak, and we make bad decisions sometimes, and we say the wrong things sometimes, and we can cause upset if we're not careful. So after a crisis of faith brought on by the terrible behaviour that this man, Francis Schaeffer, saw in his denomination, he wrote a piece called How Heresy Should Be Met. And part of that says this: the final problem is not to prove men wrong, but to win them back to Christ. Therefore, the only ultimately successful apologetic is, and apologetic is a defence. So you're saying the only real defence of Jesus and the gospel is first a clear intellectual statement of what is wrong with the false doctrine. It is the false doctrine that's wrong, and it's the false doctrine we need to stand against. Plus, a clear intellectual return to the proper scriptural emphasis in all its vitality and in its relation to the total Christian faith. Plus, a demonstration in the life that is correct and vital scriptural emphasis meets the genuine needs and aspirations of people in a way that Satan's counterfeit does not. In other words, people go looking somewhere else for peace. People go looking somewhere else for joy. And what do they look for it in? Well, I looked for it in the World Cup, and I've been let down. The joy when they scored 6 in the first match. The relief when they got through the group stage. And now what am I going to do? How's Suzanne and me going to spend our evenings without football to watch? You imagine all those people who spent who knows how much money to go and watch the team because of the joy. Where's that joy gone now? What about other areas where people look for joy, they look for peace, and it's fleeting and it lets them down, and where they should be looking is here? And it's only found here if our doctrine really seeps into our life and the way that we live, the things that we do, the way we conduct ourselves before God and with each other. If a church's gospel culture has been lost or was never built, the only remedy, according to this man, is found in Christ. It's not thinking up new and groovy ways to do things. It's not leaving the Bible behind because, well, that's old-fashioned. No, that's where the answer lies. It's with it really infiltrating our lives so that we're living according to it. So first of all, if we're to experience this joy, the gospel has to be fully believed and embraced by us, the people already here. And of course, I include the folks that are joining us on YouTube. Nothing can be gained by repackaging the church to make it more attractive to outsiders. We've got to get it right. And I truly believe if we've got it right, that's what will attract other people. That's what will cause visitors to take a look. And having seen it, they'll want what we've got. So the gospel of Christ has to be fully believed and embraced by us. So that's step one. Where are we with that? Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God? This is the bit where you join in. Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God? Oh, I'm not convinced. We might have visitors listening. Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God? Yes. Yeah, that's better. Now we do. And we embrace that. We've got to live according to it. So there has to be consistent commitment. It's not enough to look good on a Sunday morning. When Monday comes, and the alarm clock goes off, and there's a rush to get yourself ready, if you've got the kids, to get the kids to school, to get to work, do we spare a thought for God and the joy that He's brought? So there has to be consistent commitment to the gospel alone. The good news alone is where we find everything that we need. So don't be looking at other things to fill your life with, to fill the empty spaces. Look to the gospel. Look to Jesus, both in doctrine, okay, we get it right in the Bible, but also in our life, in living it. To do that will be far more beneficial than a burst of enthusiasm with an event that we have. We want this to be consistent. The events are just used to give us that extra boost or to bring people in. It's far more beneficial. If we want to take Northampton town for Christ, if we want churches being established in other parts of Northamptonshire, if we want to see Satan pushed out of school with the ridiculous things that are being taught, and pushed out of universities, and be seen more, we have got to fully embrace the gospel for ourselves and live it every single day of the week. Notice, have you got the joy down in your heart? Yes. Thank you. Cunley has. Is anyone going to join Cunley? Have you got the joy down in your heart? Yes. Yes, let's get joyful. I'm not usually like this, by the way. I'm not a preacher that does this interactive stuff. But I'm just trying to jolly us along a bit. Nehemiah chapter 8 and the last part of verse 10. For the joy of the Lord is your strength. Who was this told to? People who are being attacked. People who could be killed as they rebuilt the walls. People who are going to be attacked because they wanted to proclaim again the law of God. And they were in danger. And Nehemiah said, don't worry about it. For the joy of the Lord is your strength. If we don't tap into this joy, we're going to be the opposite. That is, weak. We've got to tap into it. John 16:20. Jesus is getting ready to leave, to depart, to no longer be with his disciples. And he says to them, you will be sorrowful. Why? Jesus knew what was going to happen to him. And that was going to bring great sorrow. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn into joy. And then skipping on in the verses, you can read it all for yourselves if you want, but skipping on, he says, so also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. The middle bit is about what it's like for a lady when she's going into labour. How worrying is it? How scary is it? I mean, I was terrified at points. Not in labour, but, you know, what Suzanne was going through and what's going to happen. And this, you know, that feeling of why did I ever meet you from the lady when she realises the pain she might be going through. But look at these children. Look at the children now. And that's forgotten. And Jesus says this is going to be the same kind of thing. When the baby arrives, it's going to be fine. So your hearts will rejoice. Psalm 30 and verse 5, the psalmist said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Anything we go through is temporary. There's joy in the morning. For the lady that I spoke about, I won't name it because this is being recorded, but the lady I spoke about, she was looking forward to joy in the morning. She's going to leave this life. But there's joy in the morning because of what Jesus means. And all this joy that we have, so why do people leave the church? All this joy that's supposed to make us happy. And why do people think, I don't know if I want to go today? Relationships are the key, obviously. Because we teach the truth. We've got the doctrine right. So it isn't that that's going to put people off. So we've got to get a balance right. If you've got the correct gospel doctrine, but that has not brought about the correct gospel culture, you have hypocrisy. What I mean by that is, we've got the truth, but if you're angry and falling out, well, you're not living up to the truth. We've got to live by what the truth says. So if we've got it correct, and I believe we have, we teach the truth here, if we don't then live by it, there's just hypocrisy. Now, the gospel culture without gospel doctrine brings fragility, because it's just a club. We're great, we have a great time together at different times, but, you know, I'm not going to tell you not to sin, because I don't want to lose your friendship. Well, hold on a minute, won't they lose their soul? Isn't that more important? Well, they need to decide for themselves. They need to come and understand. Sometimes we have to do the difficult things and confront each other. Otherwise, we've got fragility. Oops. Gospel doctrine plus gospel culture is where we find our power. You see, we feel secure because we have our doctrine correct. And we're following Scripture in the way that we need to do to be saved and to worship God in a way that's acceptable to Him and in our teaching. But is that correct doctrine translated into a correct Christian culture where we live by what we say, where we let God infiltrate our lives? May we not be hypocrites because we don't live up to the truth of what we're teaching. May we not be fragile and staying away because, well, everybody's not making me feel as good as they ought to make me feel. May we have power because the doctrine is correct and we are actually living a life of love, as we're called to, with Jesus. And may the joy that Jesus brought to the world be found in each one of us and in our congregation. May we develop our following of this good news into a good news culture that we share amongst us, where we handle the word of truth correctly and we don't let anyone steal our joy. Because Jesus brought joy to the world. And the only way the world is going to know that joy and experience it is because we are living up to it.